Hey, Tali, how are you?
Is there are readings associated with it. There's homeworks of meditations you're to practice during the week. We have 4 sessions. So it's not going to be 4 weeks in a row because we've got 1 week, I think, is Lama Tsongkhapa Day. And so it's going to skip a little bit. But if you're able and you're interested to do all the readings, to do the meditations, to keep up like that, you can then have an assessment of the course. And then technically you're signed off. And I think the center signs you off or sign you off. And you're, in a sense, have passed that course. And when you complete all the modules, you can get certified with FPMT to be a teacher for discovering Buddhism. So if that's something, just to see how it all fits together, if that's something you're interested in pursuing, it's quite meaningful bringing these courses, which are mainly take you through the Lam Rim, which is our overall philosophy, for people to shift their minds into something positive. And I know that a lot of people have asked me the last few months, and they've asked you as well, how we're doing. And I know that recently, obviously, pre-election, a lot of people were contacting me quite freaked out. And even in the waiting period, until we knew what was happening, quite freaked out. And I've just found if you're doing meaningful work, it's kind of the best you can do. And so my mind has somewhat remained kind of spacious and calm in the midst of all of this. And you can take on various activities and do your volunteer work if you want, and study Dharma, practice Dharma, and do your meditation, have that meditation practice, which is really, I just find so helpful and essential right now. And it really kept me buoyant, and it keeps me buoyant through whatever life is throwing at me. So I can't stress that enough. I think it's really helpful. And these modules fit in really well. And thank you to Thupten Khunga Center for offering that and for being there as a beacon for everyone, for the students to connect. And also, in case you don't know, and it's quite exciting, Thupten Khunga Center has an opportunity to acquire, to buy their first building, a house. And I'm sure you've heard about it. And it's very, very exciting. A lot of centers to get to that point where there's enough community, enough support, but they need help doing it. So they definitely need everybody's help to chip in on that thing and to make a donation and support that effort and then take part and make it our center. Like, that's really sweet. So I'm excited about that. So now that we're here, let's just take a moment, please. And because this is about mind training, the main thing we want to consider here is we're going to look at some verses that are going to take us into reorienting our minds in an incredibly and really extraordinarily positive way. It's all about our consideration of others. That's what these verses are about. So it's really the quintessential bodhicitta that we're going to be talking about, but through the 8 verses. And when it says lojong, this is a lojong text. Lo, L-O, is mind, relates to the mind. Zhong, transformation or training. Training the mind. Obviously, that's what Buddhism's about. That's why we study Dharma. So the issue is we're training our mind to get outside of ourselves, to consider as part of our experience, to consider helping them as much as possible. That's the crux of what we're doing, especially in this tradition. So, and the 8 verses really deal with that, about the preciousness of human beings. So just to begin, let's close our eyes for a moment. And as you bring the gaze inward, and let's let all the activities that we've been busy with today float off. Just deepen your respiration for a moment. And reflect on all the beings personally involved in your living space, perhaps your neighbors, people you interact with on Zoom meetings, face calls, audio calls, emails. Think about widening those circles of all the beings you interact with. And then go beyond those circles of beings that you know, imagining beings beyond those circles. And all the struggle there is right now on the planet, all the confusion, and imagine as you're a pivot point right in the center of all those circles. So even though there is this swirling chaos to some degree, challenges to some degree, small and great, but think of you in the center, the grace of your life, the benefits of your life. And all we have and hold in that space, in that grace. How fantastic this life we have. Not that it doesn't have its challenges, but how many benefits there are. And because of those benefits, we're here together right now and can reflect on those circles around us. The beings we know, the beings we don't know, all their suffering. We have an ability to help them, all of them. We are growing that ability. We're developing that so we can completely remove the veils to our Buddha nature and one day unlimitedly help all of those beings. As if you can feel them out there. And connecting back to your heart. Think of the advantages you have that you get to turn your mind now and then to them, considering their pain, their needs. This is part of our waking up. Part of our waking up is to consider them and turn our minds to cherishing them even more than ourselves at times. It's the essence of bodhicitta. So it's really from this space we want to engage right now in this session, explore the 8 verses, to really reach that place where we're unlimited in helping all of these beings. Thank you. And the more during the day, anytime you get the opportunity, I've been working myself with transitions right now in my day. So there's many transitions, right? You decide to get up and get a cup of tea. You go to the bathroom. You finish a meeting. You decide to take a walk. You get in your car to go to the store. You know, there's all these different changes. You know, you're going to have a meal. You're going to cook the meal. So I'm trying to work with the gaps, those transitions, shifting from one activity to the next to have the motivation there. Insert the motivation. That's what it's about, living beings, about all these beings I can help to, you know, I need to eat to keep my health. Why? So I can be a Buddha to benefit all living beings. I'm getting in the car to go to the store to buy food because I need the food again for my health, to become a Buddha to benefit all living beings. Like to keep having that cycle through more and more. So my mind's turned in that way to all those circles of the beings around you. And let me talk a little bit of some of the readings for, if you're interested, which you'll get much more out of it, that are recommended. That Rebecca can provide. Kabji Pabonka Rinpoche, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, or Liberation in Your Hand. This is the 3-volume version called Liberation in Your Hands. But again, we know that there's also the 1-volume Wisdom Publications version, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hands. Same teaching, slightly different translation. So there's some readings in this that are outlined in the book, throughout the text. Lama Zopa Rinpoche, the book Transforming Problems into Happiness. They're recommended for this course if you'd like. It's not reading all of Liberation, it's reading sections like that. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I'll mention, has a book, Transforming the Mind, Teachings on Generating Compassion, fantastic. And Geshe Sonam Rinchen, one of my favorites on the 8 verses, is 8 verses for training the mind, is this book. And a lot of these you can order online and find them, and quite easy to get. And so these are all, this is Snow Lion, this particular one. I think they still publish it. This is an old copy that I have. So this is great, specifically on the 8 verses. And so some of these are things Rebecca can send that are part of the readings for this module. There's also parts of Mahayana thought transformation from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, when problems come, thought training from the Wish Fulfilling Golden Sun. Those are usually the readings, and it has page numbers, readings that are accompany the online materials for this course. I think most of you know about online materials and things like that. The liberation pages should be listed. If you have any questions about it, you can always ask me in future segments like that. Let's see if there's anything else I want to mention about the readings. Then there's some other brilliant books I may mention again. Some of my personal favorites on mind training, Peacock and the Poison Grove, Geshe Zopa, Geshe Lundrup Zopa, one of my gurus. He's passed away, a great book on mind training. And I also like, from other traditions, Pema Chodron, The Places That Scare You. She talks about the mind training slogans from Master Tisha, really nice book. And Awakening the Mind, Lightening the Heart from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And there's a number of other books, but Peacock and the Poison Grove is one of the more famous ones that came out in the last 20 years like that. Okay. There's meditations that accompany as well. And we will be doing those through the 4 sessions. Tonglen being the most famous, the one you're probably most familiar with. And let me mention these other ones. I tend to lead variations on the ones that accompany the course. Either is fine. I'm just the one that goes with this course of the Tonglen. I've changed a lot of my meditations, but they're not all written down now, but I try not to lead things now, especially in the States where all the white light coming in is all the good and all the black light coming out is all the bad, because I think it's racist. So I've gotten away from those kind of colors, and the Tonglen meditation accompanying this has the black, flowing out of the negative and the white. So you can always change that, make it different colors. Transforming problems into happiness is a second meditation, because that's something we're very interested in learning how to do. And there's one from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, annihilating the demon of the self-cherishing mind. So, which is really the verses. So Rinpoche's act, that what way you reflect on the verses once we've gone over those. So I just want to mention those are some extra exercises as well. Okay, so let's look at what are we going to talk about? What is mind training? How do we transform problems? So what's helpful, we like this idea of transforming problems. It sounds great. And I actually just gave a talk to a Rotary Club this morning via Zoom. People find me, they found me through my brother. And that was when I give them sometimes suggestions, everybody wants that, how do we transform problems? And, why is life a hassle? How do I change that? Like that. So it's very attractive to us. And then we get stuck. And then the same patterns are coming up. So what is needed is a clear understanding of how we get caught in cyclic existence, for starters. So before we get to the first verse, which we're going to do tonight, I want to talk about renunciation and the 8 worldly dharmas. So how do we get stuck first in cyclic existence? How is it that we're compelled to take rebirth again and again? And yet we have this unique and precious opportunity right now in this life to steer ourselves away from suffering, to set ourselves on this path to liberation. So what gets in the way? What happens? And the first thing to remember in thought transformation is needing good renunciation of cyclic existence, of samsara. Samsara, you're familiar, is a word that means to turn. It refers to cyclic existence. We're turning through birth, old age, sickness, and death. So what prevents us from having proper renunciation is the 8 worldly dharmas, also called the 8 worldly concerns. Okay, so let's first look at also renunciation. What does that mean? And how do the 8 worldly concerns relate to that? So, and sometimes in some other courses, I think John Landau, who's a wonderful teacher, refers to renunciation as definite emergence, emerging. Okay, so when you talk about something called the 3 principles of the path, it's renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness, the 3 principles, or the 3 principal aspects of the path. It starts with renunciation, and renunciation is often symbolized by a lotus. So when you see the Buddha sitting on an open lotus flower, and on that is usually a sun and moon cushions, and that's how they'll describe a lot of the deity visualizations. So renunciation is the lotus, because the lotus rises out of the swamp unstained by the muck around it. So how can we get out of suffering? That's the muck. How do we get out of that like the lotus and come out unstained? So you're emerging with renunciation, striving to get out of the cycle of suffering. And it's not about giving all your money away. That's not renunciation. It's an attitude that strives day and night to get out of the cycle of suffering, that strives day and night to get out of samsara. Okay. So how come we're not doing that? What happens? Okay. The 8 worldly concerns are assisted by ignorance and self-cherishing. Okay. We want happiness. We don't want to suffer. Everybody wants that, clear. And we go after that strongly for ourselves, not consideration for others, for ourselves. Okay. So, and though we might think other people want that too, we're aware, but our own habitual tendencies, our own habitual self-interest the ignorant view generally takes over. Okay, we don't really believe that karmic cause and effect is behind every experience, is behind every activity, every thought, every word. Okay, we don't really see the play in it. And so then I'm just very habituated. It's all about me, what I need, my happiness. I don't realize that that's having an effect on everything that comes next for me. So in transforming problems, we need to understand this kind of yoked nature. It binds us, the binding nature of the 8 worldly concerns, okay, and what it is exactly that makes them worldly concerns. Worldly concerns, meaning it's something negative, it's worldly, it's not going to transcend to get us enlightened, okay? So there's no problem. It's not a problem to want things, to want material gain, to want to be comfortable like that, to want to be happy. It's not a problem. It's only if we do so, it's not a problem if we do so with wisdom and a broad, expansive attitude that includes others, that considers others. Then it's not really a problem to want those things. Okay. But what happens is we end up under the influence of attachment and aversion, of anything that gets in the way of me being comfortable and having the things I want and having people like me and having people praise me and gaining things. So what we actually end up doing is counter to those of with this wisdom of cherishing others. What we end up doing is getting driven by attachment to this and aversion from that. And, you know, so how do you develop and increase your wisdom? How do we increase the idea of cherishing others? So you can also think how wonderful if I and others around me, maybe including all beings, okay, could also have material resources, could also be comfortable, could also have people like them, could also have the things they want. Okay, so just having that thought, you get something you like, okay, you're excited, you're happy about it, you know, and I can just take something, you know, this is a loftier thing. Let's say the center getting their house, getting their building. Now, I think the people behind that, the people making that happen, Nicole, Rebecca, all the donors, people helping like that, benefactors, they're interested in, and they have a bigger wish because they really want the center to flourish. So that's great. But you get excited too, and you go, really, we really want it to happen. And, you know, so if we can just think, well, it would be really cool if all the centers could have their own places. So immediately you pop out of just, you know, we need this. We need to make this happen. I want this. So anytime somebody gives you a present, you're comfortable. I know I feel pretty comfortable where I'm living. It's my parents' house. And I just feel so grateful. And I really spend, you know, there's a lot of my thought in the day is just like, wow, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, just we had some incredible weather the last few days. Beautiful, beautiful weather we really don't have in the Northeast in November. I'm in the Philadelphia area. So we had 70 degrees, sunny. It was just glorious for a few days. And then it's been raining. But so suddenly the heat just went on in the house. And I was like, oh, like, I just had this little glee of it's wonderful to have heat when it gets cold. And I also appreciate from, you know, sometimes I've been at Laudo, which is a remote retreat center near Mount Everest. I'm going to lead a pilgrimage hopefully next year again there. And so there's no heat really. And I was just, the last time I was there, a little bit too cold. I stayed into December after the pilgrimage. And I was just too cold. And that's happened a few times there. And coming down on the plane was the first time you walk down to the plane. But finally, when I got on the plane had heat go on for the first time, and I felt it at my heels. And suddenly I was like, what's that? And then for a minute, and listen, I went, it's heat. And it was so comfortable. It felt so good. I nearly cried, right? So think about that. But then if I can think, wow, it'd be great if everybody had a comfortable place to live. So immediately you try to pop out of my own me, myself, and I trip that tends to counter the selfishness, the self-cherishing that's involved. Like that can be really helpful. And we just try to pattern over and over. And I find, as many of you know, gratitude, which is a big practice for me, gratitude keeps me sane and it keeps me buoyant every day. It's just, there's so many things, as you know, this past 9 months of election cycle, whatever, of how negative people can be and how critical, how mean they can be and cruel with their words and things. And just, the words start with the thought. You know, it comes into your mind, and then some people say it. And then some people in the extreme act it out, obviously. But first it comes into the mind of a negative critical thought. And gratitude helps me to undo that. You know, I might notice the thought come up, and then I can quickly say, well, there's a positive thing I can think about that, or that person, or there's always a positive side. Absolutely, really, like that. Even when you don't think there is, there's always something positive you can find in somebody like that. So learning how to counter the 8 worldly dharmas is really, really an important part of thought transformation. It's actually a key to developing renunciation. And if we understand how the 8 worldly concerns, together with self-grasping and self-cherishing, have kept us trapped for so long, we give up desire for them. We learn how to use our wisdom, how to develop compassion, to bring the genuine mind of renunciation. And we're going to talk a little bit more and define, kind of clarify self-grasping different than self-cherishing and what those two are and how they operate. So attachment, we hear the word attachment. Some people equate it with love, okay? In Buddhism, it's not equated with love. Attachment is a negative mind state. It exaggerates good qualities of an object or a person. And as a result of that, we overestimate the reality that's out there. You're familiar with attachment, you know that. We've talked about before the 3 poisonous states of mind. Attachment being one, anger or hatred being another, and ignorance or confusion being the third, the 3 poisons. Attachment to material things overestimates the ability of those things to bring lasting happiness. Okay, later on, it's not the object that lets you down, it's your attachment, your exaggeration about the object. We have this with people as well, okay? You get unhappy about it, and then there's danger that you get angry, you know, and then with anger, you overestimate the negative qualities, the negative attributes of that person or that thing. And then all of this upset rooted in the fundamental poison of ignorance or confusion. All the upset is because you misunderstood reality. So most of you have heard this before. You know how it works. And because attachment is a mind that exaggerates good attributes, we can't be attached to developing loving kindness, compassion, or enlightenment, because there's no way to exaggerate the good qualities of those things. And in some ways, His Holiness would say, then be attached like that. Be kind of selfish like that. If your wish is really to develop loving, like I want to practice Dharma to develop loving kindness, to become enlightened so I can benefit all living beings, then His Holiness kind of said, well, then be selfish like that. That's a way to be selfish. Okay, but again, have a good motivation, then less selfishness. Okay. So it's attachment to these worldly dharmas that's the problem. Wishing for wealth, wishing for comfort, wishing for praise, fame for yourself, things like that. And other, it creates a cause. So if we're wishing for that for others, for oneself and others, for Dharma aims, creating those causes creates a virtuous activity that can help your path. Okay, not just tainted with the 8 worldly dharmas. When I'm just focused on the 8 worldly dharmas for my own gain, then it's non-virtuous. Okay, but if I have a bigger mode about considering it for others, can create a virtuous path like that. So it's inevitable we're going to have a period where our Dharma practice is mixed with the eight worldly concerns. It's just normal. It's just normal. We know we shouldn't be attracted to cyclic existence because we want a good reputation for our own sake. We want to be better than people around us. I mean, it's natural that those things happen. I've seen people even with the Dharma, the competition of, oh, you did that retreat? Oh, I haven't done that. How come she did that retreat? Oh, I don't know if she did it right. I don't know if she did it the right way, and so there's just these attachments where we're comparing ourselves. I loved one interview I saw with His Holiness, and at the end, it really struck me. And he said, don't be competitive and don't be a hypocrite. Like those two things that really, and I thought of, because I was raised very much in a competitive family. So it really helped me. I heard this years ago, and it really struck me because I think I'd been very competitive, and even the way I was running centers at the time, and it really helped me relax a bit. Of instead of looking out and comparing myself to others, it's about me and my mind. Me, how's my mind doing at this point? Okay, but with a bigger motivation that I'm working on my mind to be of the most benefit. The other thing about trying to go against the eight worldly dharmas, okay, and also the eight worldly dharmas, just to identify, there's four pairs of things that you're familiar with, four pairs of situations make up the eight worldly dharmas: pain and pleasure, gain and loss, praise and blame, and fame and dishonor. Those are the four situations that manipulate us into sitting in self-cherishing. Again, pain and pleasure, and literally the way it's written in Tibetan is you're attached to feeling good, to feeling pleasurable, and you're averted, you're not happy when you're feeling pain, feeling something unpleasurable. You're very happy when you get something, and unhappy when you lose something or don't receive something. Third pair is you're very happy when, and this is literally when you hear pleasant words or pleasant sounds about you, about yourself, praise, and unhappy when you hear unhappy sounds about yourself, blame. And then the last one's really related to having a good reputation and having a bad reputation. Eight worldly dharmas. So again, you don't want to fall into martyrdom. Somebody wants to offer you something. And you're like, no, I don't need any food. I don't need a place to live. That's another device of the ego, that you want to be seen as generous, right? So you don't want to ever take anything from somebody else. But if you don't receive something, other people can't give and be generous. So being that kind of extreme as well isn't also helpful, especially if you're resentful about it and not happy, and that the mind's very constricted. If you're not giving from a spacious heart, and if you're not receiving from a spacious heart, it's just martyrdom. It's not really helpful like that. And then also you might want to look at when, the way you give, be realistic in your generosity. Don't expect anything in return, or don't have regret later. I shouldn't have given her the scarf. I really wanted that one. Be careful. So practice a little generosity regularly so that you become habituated with it, that you see the happiness in it. Okay, then it becomes easier and easier. Okay. So attachments based on ignorance and selfishness. Most basic ignorance is self-grasping, holding to the wrong view we have of ourselves. Self-grasping, holding to the wrong view we have of ourselves. It's related to not understanding emptiness, holding the I to be inherently existent. Okay, and then as a result of that self-grasping, holding again to the wrong view we have of ourselves, we then cherish that as very important to work for, tending to disregard others. I have this false notion of how the I exists, how I exist, my ego, myself, right? And that's what I'm focused on. I'm going to take care of that with everything I have. Okay? Now, with cherishing others, it doesn't mean you neglect yourself. Far from it. It's not about neglecting yourself at all. So practically, Buddhism is very practical. You have to take care of yourself. How do you want to do it? With a good motivation, consideration of others as much as possible. Okay. So self-grasping, again, is an ignorant mind, a wrong idea of who we really are, a wrong idea of who we are. It's an exaggerated idea of who we are. And then we cherish that as most precious, protecting it from harm, supplying it with everything we think we need, disregarding others' needs. Okay. It is not wrong, though, just to be accurate, it's not wrong to want happiness and not want suffering. Okay. But it's wrong to be so overly self-focused that you disregard the needs of others, that you just disregard others in general. Self-cherishing is not a delusion as such, just a very narrow piece of inconsideration like that. So this is a way to bring about stronger renunciation, is realizing also how I get stuck in this idea that I have the wrong notion of myself. So it's obvious, it's natural for me to start the self-preservation like that. So what we want to try to do is cultivate equanimity. Cultivate equanimity. Renunciation, as I've said, it's a very important aspect of thought transformation, particularly the strongest renunciation you feel when you strive day and night to get out of cyclic existence, to get out of samsara, that even the shortest time's unbearable to remain in this. Why? So you can really fully cherish others. You really have that wish, okay? So behind that thought's equanimity, the thought that all beings want happiness and don't want to suffer, just like me, and they're worthy of our consideration and our effort. Again, all humans want to be happy and don't want to suffer. All beings want that, actually. Okay, no matter what culture they come from, no matter what realm they're in, they all want that. Okay, so even though they can't really articulate it like in the animal realm necessarily, but they definitely want it. So we want to try to cultivate equanimity to understand this thing that I'm the same as all these other beings. That's the beginning of that thought transformation. I'm the same, you know, and as a result of the same, first of all, it humbles you. I'm not any better than anybody else. Like that, you can say, oh, you're a Buddhist nun, or, you know, people put me on a pedestal. Oh, you've been at this for so long. I'm like a beginner, like everybody else. Every day I wake up, meditations begin again. I don't know what's going to show up in my mind. You know, certainly you see some progress of being able to watch your mind more. Okay, but so much of us, the same kind of experiences happen for me. So from the humility and openness comes affection, comes for other beings, that we're all in the same pot here. Really, people suffer as well. You know, people had a big thing about these candidates for the election, and some people like this person and some people like this person. Some people hated this person, some people hated this person. Nobody's perfect. And even the most outrageous behavior, the most outrageous person, whatever you'd say, you can always look at them and think, just like me, they want to be happy. They don't want to suffer. You know, and isn't it interesting? Because just like me, they suffer. And they suffer from delusion, a confusion, just like me. You know, I misknow how I exist as well. Well, so do they. And I might label them and say they're an idiot or they're stupid, or how could they say that, right? But simply because they're mixed up. I'm also mixed up. We are all broken and mixed up at times. I'm not laying a trip on you to say you're bad and everything, but you know, the only way to get out of the suffering, the brokenness, is to go through it. Wake up and look at it and see, I'm not any different. Others, we will all suffer like this. I'm not any different from these other beings. Okay. By analyzing how we suffer, that generates the renunciation. I want out of this. I can't keep doing this and cycling around again and again and again with the same problems, And you can do it. You can get out finally, but it's going to take that wake up thing of like, how many more times do I have to go through this? Some of you have made great strides and changes in your life. Some of you I know. And so what happens is we perpetuate a negative pattern for so long. And you've woken up at some point in your life and said, I can't do this. I can't do it this way anymore. That simply was not working. No benefit. And that's an exciting place. And it might be an exciting place, even though you may label it like the tragic, what do they call it? The dark night of the soul. There's been times we've been on our knees, really suffering with something. And I found those moments for me, some incredible insights come. So it's not like I'm making them happen for myself, making me go through a trauma, making me have an accident, making me go through tremendous suffering. But when it comes up, can I use it? So instead of numbing out and shutting down and lashing out, okay, now granted, with severe trauma, you do need to take a little bit of time for yourself to heal, to reflect. Make the time. It's valuable. Don't rush through things, or a grief, losing, a loved one. Take the time to feel the hurt. And when you feel it more and more, but then realize everybody goes through this. So suddenly I'm connected and heart level connected to all these other beings going through that. I'm not alone in this, but feel that feeling like, wow, all these people suffer like this. I'm suffering like this. And you reach a point sometimes with enough of that suffering and you change a pattern in your own life. You change your mind. You change a pattern in your mind. Significant. You change a pattern for the better in your mind. That's thought training. That's thought transformation. Significant. So it comes from building that bodhicitta heart, realizing I'm not different from others, exploring the suffering, watching it, hanging there with it, being with it at times. We have a culture in the United States of America. God forbid we should suffer. I know people just, this is life. So let's use it. Let me explore it. Let me just sit with it sometimes. Sometimes things suck, and I will take it right into my meditation. And sometimes the best I can do is I'm just going to be with it. But that builds my renunciation. I went out of this. And I went out of it not just for me. I went out of it so I can reach a place where I can help others get out of it permanently. Generate. So slowly that builds over time and you start transforming and watching your mind a little bit more, practicing Dharma more. So it may be necessary to take some strong action, okay, against certain people. When somebody is really endangering people, and we do know there's certain people on the planet and we're not going to follow them. They're murderers or they're really, that's not a path we're going to be, but I can still have compassion for them. I can still realize that just like me, they want to be happy and they don't want to suffer. They have a different way of going about getting their happiness, avoiding suffering, perhaps than I do. But I do acknowledge they want the same thing I want. Doesn't mean I'm going to follow them or even condone what they're doing. So sometimes you need to protect and take strong action against harm and against harmful people. But we should always respect the fact, again, that they want happiness and they don't want to suffer. And then definitely refrain from the harming them as much as possible. Like if someone's attacking you. Some people have asked me in Buddhism, what do you do if somebody's going to attack? What Buddhists would really do, a really practicing Buddhist would, for the most part, try to just get away from the person first. We're not one to lash out and attack back. And sometimes you just need to remove yourself. I'm talking about extreme attack. And then if it's just verbal things and, just be quiet for a moment. Silence is very powerful. Later, I would take it back to my meditation cushion to explore what was my role in it. Did I instigate something and realizing the person's really struggling? And then when I can, calmly, with compassion, can I find a healthy way to have a dialogue with the person, perhaps, like that? Or maybe you need somebody else to be there with you, interventions and things. So we need to feel even more compassion for somebody that harms people because they're going to suffer heavily for their deeds like that. How can we not generate compassion like that? At times when I guess I heard, and I have no idea how you voted, but I heard some the way people would talk about Trump, and even now, I watch the news a little bit. Each day I watch a little bit of news, like 10 or 15 minutes. And, you know, he's less on the news now, I've noticed. But when I see him, my heart goes out to him. It's hard to lose. It's really hard to lose. And, you know, even though people can say it was also very close, you know, and also having a personality like his, I think it's harder to lose. He even stated that recently, that, you know, he doesn't like losing. So I feel for him. I feel for that. That's really, I think in junior high school or something, I ran for like student council, something, president, or so, you know, I have some memory of something like that. There was some class, and I think I didn't get the top thing. I came in second or something. And you know, I know that feeling. You lose, you know, it's not a pleasant feeling. And that's a mini level as a, so, you know, I feel, and people, you know, everybody attacking you. What's that like? How does it feel when one person blames you for something? You obsess for a month about it, right? Well, look at him being in public office. You know, I know he chose that and he did it. I didn't think he thought he was going to win the first time, or I think it was a surprise. So suddenly there he is. Everybody's pointing the finger at him. So you can think about people that really cause tremendous harm. They're going to suffer because of karma. They're going to suffer for that. Incredible, like that. So that's a huge space of thought transformation. Huge space of mind training is that space. Can you find somebody you disagree with in your life personally? Somebody personal that really irks you? Is it a colleague? Is it a neighbor? Is it a relative that really drives you crazy at times? Okay, that's the person you want to work with. And here's the thing is, you know that when you're around them, they push your buttons. They'll say that thing that really irritates you, right? From opening your mouth in a snippy way to them, which is maybe that's the normal habit, saying something sharp back to them. Why do we want to refrain? Because that can cause them more anger, more upset in their mind. If they get angry back at us again, right, they end up suffering. Those are the karmic seeds that cause them ultimately to go to hell. Tremendous anger. So can you you're protecting your mind, protecting your activities that come from your mind, okay? But in consideration of them, that this could instigate more negativity and delusion in them. It's a huge space of mind, that one. Like that. Even though you want to get back at them and there's a part of you, refrain. See if you can calm the response from negative reactivity with them in mind. Oh my, if I do this again, they're going to get so angry. So why do I need to say it? That anger in their mind, that imprint of anger in their mind will cause them tremendous suffering. So you take action of refraining yourself, your activities, doing something, responding with kindness. How about that? Responding from kindness towards them. Care about them like that. It's a huge space of mind, okay? So let's look at, where do the thought transformation teachings fit in? Where do they fit in the Lamrim, okay? They come in the Lamrim teachings on the greater scope. As you know, there's 3 scopes of the Lamrim based on motivation. Lower capable being, the lower scope, is motivated because they're want to practice, and they're terrified that what could come next is going to be terrible for them, that they're going to die and they're going to take an unfortunate rebirth, like that. So the teachings that fit into that scope are teachings on the preciousness of the human life, the situations quickly passing away, death and impermanence. When we do die, we could end up in more suffering states, lower realms of existence. What's going to protect us from that? Refuge in the 3 jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And then once I take refuge, I want to learn how to behave, how to conduct myself by looking at karma and practicing the 10 virtues, 10 ethical guidelines, and avoiding the non-virtues, like that. Then build on that motivation. I realize that I'm still suffering, even in this particular situation, and that's not good enough. And I would really like to reach liberation, permanent cessation of all my mental afflictions. So that particular module, the medium capable being, middle scope, looks at all the different ways we suffer and talks about ripping out the root of the suffering, ignorance, through understanding emptiness. And then developing meditative quiescence, shine, so I can apply that in emptiness meditation to have a direct perception of emptiness. Then the highest scope, which is for the higher capable being, the great scope, talks about bodhicitta. And this is what makes us a Mahayana Buddhist, greater vehicle Buddhist. So these teachings come in the great scope and taught for those capable, bearing the responsibility of working for all beings. In the greater scope, we're motivated with the other two motivations, but then I realized that even if I end my own suffering and reach liberation, all these other beings are still suffering. So can I really sleep well at night? But if I can develop that totally open heart, soak it in the right view, continuously in the right view, I can become enlightened. I can become a Buddha, fully awakened being, and then have every capacity to help lead all others to that place. So the greater scope has three distinct sections. Okay. One is teaching that bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, is a gateway, the entry to the Mahayana path and the benefits of it. Number two, how to develop bodhicitta. Number three, how to train in the deeds of a bodhicitta, of a bodhisattva, by practicing the 6 perfections. So the thought transformation teachings come in the second section, which is how to develop bodhicitta. And then we know, and you've had teachings on this before, there's 2 main methods to develop bodhicitta. One is called the 7-point cause and effect method. And the second is exchanging oneself with others. Thought transformation teachings come as part of the second method, exchanging self with others, the second method of developing bodhicitta, the practice of kind of interchange self with others as a means to convert suffering, to transform problems into the path, to transform problems into the path. So what we do with this, there's 5 different things that we look at in order on this path to develop, and Tonglen meditation is part of this. But what we start to do is look at it's based on a basis of equanimity, and both methods develop on a basis of equanimity, and that in some ways is considered number 1, and then there's like 4 additional steps. One step is understanding the faults of self-cherishing. And the second step is the benefits of self-cherishing. So you would slowly explore those through meditation to develop bodhicitta. I think we're pretty clear on what they are. And again, equanimity is the same that we would say as seeing how self-cherishing has caused all of your problems. Self-cherishing is really the only one to blame, that they say in these lojong teachings, for everything that goes wrong. So it'd be really nice this week to explore, based on this course, is to explore, notice when you're suffering, notice when a little cloud has come across your horizon this week. Excuse me, a little practical homework. Or notice when a big cloud has come, okay, whatever it could be. You know, it could be, I know that you had some really heavy rains from the storm, from Eta. And I think there's another storm yet coming, right? It's just unbelievable. And then Florida really got bashed by that last storm because it came in one direction and then it went up, and now it's washing over north of you. Like, it's just crazy. So, you know, people were telling me their houses were leaking and it's just the flooding. I mean, some people died in this storm further north like that. It's really frightening. I've had all kinds of things like that going on. And you have these little things. So how do I look at it? You know, some people it's just kind of like, I need to deal with it. Need to have, take care of it. We'll take care of it. But for some people, that those clouds that come across, it really gets you down. Something beats you down that day. You're not happy suddenly. Notice what's going on in your mind if you can, because it's usually focused around your self-cherishing. You wanted something. Somebody else got it. Somebody else got noticed. You didn't get noticed. You have to deal with some house repairs, and it's not going well, and the person didn't call you back, and this is interrupting my day. I had other things better to do, and whatever your mind's telling you, look at the self-cherishing. That's the only thing to get upset with. That's the only thing to blame. They say put all the blame on one. It's one of Master Atisha's mind training slogans. Put all the blame on one. It's just your self-cherishing. And if you can look at that in general in your life, you're having, and we're coming up on the holidays, and a lot of people will not be able to see family during the holidays right now. It won't be possible to have the Thanksgiving feast or to get together for Christmas or other holidays like that. And I know, though, that when people do get together with family, and we've talked about this before, there's stressors with that as well, because there's that relative that you really find challenging to be around. Okay. So you can watch your self-cherishing with that. Does my self-cherishing ever allow me to think of them? No. It's all about me. They're in my space, taking up my thing. Where was I recently because I haven't been around that many people, but suddenly somebody was talking about, and they ate the last appetizer that I wanted. I heard somebody saying this recently. It's like, like they had all these negative things about this person, and she ate the last hors d'oeuvre that the person wanted. Again, self-cherishing. But we get hooked in all kinds of things. Self-cherishing is to blame for the confusion in the United States right now is due to self-cherishing. You could say that's why the world is not at peace, is due to self-cherishing. You can blame war on self-cherishing, environmental problems on self-cherishing. I mean, look at our planet. Why are there environmental problems? Greed and power. And I mean, you can directly link certain things that these people needed this. And why is there poverty? I find it astounding at the amount of money that goes into electoral politics. Having been involved in it at one point in my life, the amount of money that most of it's spent on commercial advertising that everybody hates. Everybody hates it. Nobody likes watching it or listening to it or having it take up mental space. And there's all this money for that. For me, it's one of the most absurd things in the United States political system is that. Self-cherishing. It all comes from self-cherishing. So I'm not blaming you for your self-cherishing. I'm looking at my own self-cherishing and realizing I have a part in that. I have a role in that. Okay. Self-cherishing is to blame for bad relationships, for people criticizing you, for people being mean, people being rude to you. You can keep looking. Each of these things is caused, the karma comes up for even physical ailments, mental problems from self-cherishing. This is, you want to really explore the faults of self-cherishing, the faults of self-cherishing. Every single thing, this is what the Lamrim says, every single thing you can think of that's mental or physical suffering, personally or in the wider world, is caused by self-cherishing. It is a nasty beast. Okay. So, however, mostly we think the cause of our problems is external to us. Somebody else is doing it to us. We never really consider self-cherishing. We think it's this person or that person or like that. But we have a role in it. So again, not a heavy trip on yourself. This is simply about waking up. And I've actually found it lighter for me to look at my self-cherishing, be able to laugh at yourself too with it. And we start working on it. The best we can do is we look at it, become aware, and then we start working on it. We start working on it. It's not getting yourself down. I'm a horrible person because I cherish myself. We all cherish ourselves. That's a human condition. So just wake up to it, because some people are not awoken to that. They don't realize that. Okay. So it's to blame for everything. So rather than you blaming other people and and not even blaming yourself, but just being aware that, yes, I have this in my mind. How exciting, I can work on it. Fantastic. So that selfish attitude for oneself alone, that disregards others, is the one to blame. Cherishing others is the attitude that brings every benefit, every virtue, every success. Self-cherishing prevents you from gaining enlightenment, bodhicitta, renunciation. It's why we're attached to the 8 worldly dharmas, self-cherishing. But look at the benefits of cherishing others. The benefits of cherishing others. Many, many that you can think of. It protects you from other delusions arising. When you're thinking of others, virtue comes easily. They say you're able to achieve all the realizations up to enlightenment. So generally, when we get over one problem, there's always another problem to take its place, because we never really worked deeply to destroy the self-cherishing. Okay. And if we had, the problems would go away like that. So it doesn't mean the situation necessarily changes, or that there's no longer any bad people in the world. Okay. That there's no more wars, there's no more sickness. Okay. But because you've changed your self-cherishing attitude, then loss of possessions, difficult people, they don't bother you. They're not problems for you like they were before. You can see this in yourself, you can see this in others that don't have the Dharma or don't have a way to practice like that. So that's been exciting sometimes when I'll notice, and this just happened with the election, as I saw people calling me, contacting me. I went for a walk in the park with a few friends from high school, really nice women, a few weeks ago. And one of them was just, the entire walk, 2 hours, was just railing about this politician, this person, the whole, and we had the same views. I think we were voting for the same group. She just kept, and at one point I just was kind of like, can you take a break? Can we just enjoy the trees for a moment? Like it was just, she was so caught up in it, no balance in her mind again. So I could see that I was experiencing the same thing. I was living in the same world with her. These things were happening like that, but less of a problem. I was doing all I could do. I'm doing all I can do, and that I can't do any better than that. It's the best I could do, and volunteering for this, helping with that a little bit. And so you could see how it can lay some evening, a level to your mind, peace, a buoyant cushion for your mind. Experiment, check. You can say, watch when your mind starts flying off and reacting over something negatively. Like some of us have habits more that you jump on, you go, oh, how could they do that? Some people have more drama in their minds. So notice the drama, notice the roller coaster. It's simply a habit, that's all. See if you can catch it again when you're headed downhill on the roller coaster. If you don't like that, suddenly everything's sinking and you go, oh, so what? Notice what's going on. Notice what's going on and just acknowledge, wow, I'm just sitting in my mind right now thinking about me, me, me. Well, what positive things do I have going on in my life? Many. Let me focus on those for a while. And the thing that's causing this unhappiness, can I do something about it? Ask yourself, please, can I do something about it? If you think you can with a good motivation, then act, then do it. Take action. If you've analyzed and you realize there's really nothing I can do about it, right? Let it go. Let it go. I think I told some of you, I decided I'd make some calls for the election. I did it for a month. It's all computerized now. You didn't need to be in Pennsylvania if you want to call Pennsylvania. You could be anywhere. So we called Georgia. I called Georgia and Arizona and Pennsylvania. And I just set a month. I said, I'm only going to do it for a month if it's working well. I met some really great people. It was a really cool process to how you do it. And then when people started voting early, then I stopped because I was starting to get people, they said they voted. I thought I have other things to do. That was the best I could do. So I wasn't tweaked by this happening or this happening. It's like I did what I could do, what I felt was important. I had a big little bit of a debate with myself. Should I do that? Because it's not really, I have more Dharma, read that Dharma book, but I didn't do it that often. It didn't take over my day. I could pick whenever I wanted to do it, a little half an hour here, half an hour there. That's the best I thought I could do. I wanted to do something. I did it. Then I let it go. Then I said enough, done enough of it. Back to the meditation, right? Okay. And then the nice thing is you start cherishing others, you start thinking more about others, just directing the energy out at others. Okay. And you can also think through this virtue, may I be able to help others in an extensive way? So I'm not even, when I dedicate, I'm not even being a hog with my dedication for me to get in lines. I can, that I have a lot of dedications as well that I try to do for people that are sick, for the planet, for, different things, so that it's kind of a bigger, I'm not even being possessive about virtue. And it's easier then for me to share resources in general. You start to get that pattern in your mind if it's possible, like that. Okay, I do want to get to the first verse, but then we're going to come back in another session because I want to do just a short Tonglen meditation before we break and see if there's any questions. Training in these 5 steps, again, equanimity, starting to look at the faults of self-cherishing, examining and reflecting on the faults of self-cherishing. That's number 2. Number 3, reflecting on the advantages, the benefits of cherishing others. And then we come to, in your mind, exchanging yourself with others. It's just an attitude that you do, and Tonglen meditation. This is the training in the 5 steps. Again, equalizing, exchanging self with others. One of the main topics when you're talking about the 8 verses. It's a method for converting suffering, for transforming suffering into the path. And we're looking at it through this concise training text, the 8 verses. The longer name, the ever-flowing nectar of the Mahayana thought training, annihilating the demon of self-cherishing mind. Well, that sounds pretty interesting. Annihilating the demon of self-cherishing mind by Geshe Langri Tangpa. Full name, Langri Tangpa Dorje Senge. Okay, Geshe Langri Tangpa. So what we're really trying to do is, as he says, annihilate the demon of the self-cherishing mind. Very powerful, these 8 verses. Let me just bring you to the first verse. Determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche shifted this slightly. This is the whole verse. Determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I shall hold them most dear at all times. Rinpoche has taken out the word shall. He's just amended this. So it says, I hold them most dear. They wanted it to be like we're doing it now, not something in the future. Each of these 8 verses, this is the first verse, is taking an attitude that's different from our ordinary worldly approach. It's extraordinary, okay? And part of this goes into why are sentient beings so precious, where it says, benefit all sentient beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, because all sentient beings are the cause of our enlightenment. Lama Zopa Rinpoche goes into this a lot in some of his teachings. That Buddhas come from bodhisattvas, he says. Buddhas come from bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas depend on sentient beings to get enlightened. So our enlightenment is completely dependent on sentient beings. A bodhisattva's whole purpose, they derive pleasure from cherishing others more than themselves. Their entire job is about benefiting others. That's how they live, that's how they breathe. Everything's focused on benefiting others. The people they're benefiting are sentient beings. That's what they're focused on, beings that are not enlightened. Okay? They can't become Buddhas without us, without sentient beings. So in order to get enlightened, everything's dependent on sentient beings. That's how precious they are. We need them to get enlightened. Whether they're good, whether they're bad, we can't do it without them. So you start reflecting on that deeply. I can't do this without living beings. I can't get enlightened without living beings. The fact that we have been in relationship to all beings. So we look at the relationships when they're kind to us, when they were our mother and father. Just think of that on that level. Those of you that have been on this path for a while, you believe in reincarnation, which Buddhism teaches. So we've had countless rebirths, countless lives, and we've had all these beings in different relationships with us, helping us as our mother, as our father, as our friend, as our companion. They helped me, they supported me. Unbelievable, how precious. So right now we have people around us that we don't necessarily recognize in those roles, but in the past they've been incredibly close friends. Our mother, close to us like that. People that we were inseparable from. People that we love more than anyone. I just don't recognize them this time around. Okay, but I've had that relationship with them. You know, so at some point they may look like our enemies in this life. That's just this life. We've had countless lives. We've had countless lives. And if I prefer to focus on the positive, then I don't have to hang out just seeing them as an enemy, stuck in enemy all the time, which creates disturbance in my mind. So at every stage of our practice, our development, sentient beings are involved and they're necessary. They're involved and they're necessary. And then it goes on to say they're more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. You've heard about wish-fulfilling jewel before. It's legendary. Like an actual jewel, you pray to it, it brings you all sorts of things. Well, isn't that fantastic? Money, prosperity, good job, powerful position, protection from harm, protection from natural disasters. Wouldn't that be cool? That's pretty cool, that wish-fulfilling jewel. Okay, just having a wish-fulfilling jewel is dependent on your karma. Okay, so you see this wish-fulfilling jewel, unbelievable. Sentient beings, more precious than that. More precious than that. Because all a wish-fulfilling jewel brings you is something worldly. Sentient beings can get you enlightened. Extraordinary, like that. And if we don't have the attitude of sentient beings being precious, we lose an incredible opportunity. So the more we can turn our minds to that. So here we really try to be determined to obtain the greatest benefit from these beings. We're practicing to see them as most precious from this verse, like that. Train in seeing others as those whom we pray to not only gain enlightenment for, but I rely on them for getting enlightened. I want them to get enlightened. I want to help them, but I rely on them to do it. Let me just stop there for a moment. Any questions right now? Let's see if I can see everybody. Okay. How's everyone doing? Some people probably tired. I understand. Any questions? Anything at all? Okay.
I have no particular questions, but I
Please.
find it interesting that the change from I shall to I hold. It's interesting how one word can really transform how you think about.
Isn't it? It really is. Rinpoche has this unique way of changing our prayers up, and you just try it. You know, some people are used to, like I had memorized the verses and then I kind of got stuck, but now I like it. Now I'm used to that, like that. And it's much more active. You know, I hold them most days.
Yeah, I'm doing it.
I'm doing this now. Yeah, I'm not going to wait, like that. Let's just finish with a brief Tonglen, a Tonglen just related to ourselves right now, just related to ourselves. We can just practice there and then we'll slowly expand it as well. Just sit comfortably. And I'm just curious before we start again. So now that it's been like over an hour, has it been breaking up much?
Just a few times, not
Okay.
enough to be disruptive. Maybe a word or two was lost, but nothing.
Okay. So I'm going to try to see I'm not sure what I need to do. Is there some booster extender? I'll try to figure out how to do that for the future. Great. Hopefully it's not too complicated. Thank you. So let's just sit comfortably. You can lightly close your eyes. And just bring your awareness to your breath for a moment. And imagine in the space across from you is a replica of yourself facing you. And just visualize as best as you can as you look across at yourself. Reflect for a moment on the various ways you suffer. And generate that heart that would really love to remove all that suffering. And imagine you seated there in your space. At your heart, at your core, is a constricted knot of your self-cherishing. And in this Tonglen meditation, very briefly, we're going to try to diminish that as best as we can. So every time you inhale, imagine you're taking some suffering from the front visualization of yourself, and it leaves them out of the left nostril and enters you seated here in your space in the right nostril, in whatever images represent suffering to you, or whatever colored light rays you'd like to visualize. Again, you draw it in through your right nostril. It does not harm you. It only harms your self-cherishing, that constricted knot at the center of your core. And as we purify that and erase that, we're filled with a greater happiness and joy. And let's offer that out our left nostril to the front visualization of ourself as we exhale, and whatever images represent joy and happiness and peace. So first we're taking the suffering, and then we're offering the happiness. Just with the circular breathing, inhaling, exhaling. Imagine that front visualization of yourself, happier and more peaceful. And slowly imagine the front visualization of yourself happier, more peaceful. And just look across at that front visualization and acknowledge in any way that you like before we let them go back into the space from where they came. And just let that front visualization dissolve back in the space. Just observe your mind now with just having some faith. You've definitely lessened some of the self-cherishing. So even though you do the practice with yourself, we need some help as well so that we can benefit all living beings. Please relax. So I would like to, is it possible for me to share my screen, Rebecca, or can you easily make me a host that I'm just going to bring up a couple quick dedication prayers.
You can share, you should be able to share it, Venerable Amy.
Great, thank you.
Uh-huh.
And one of these prayers, these are from some of the COVID dedications that Lama Zopa Rinpoche likes. I'll just share my screen. And we'll just read a few of these in dedicating whatever positive energy we've created. First of all, may it really be beneficial for all of us to reach enlightenment, to be able to counter our self-cherishing more and more, reach enlightenment and benefit all living beings. I'd also like to dedicate to Tutunkonga Center, gaining their wonderful new center, the new house, and the house that they're looking for. May everything go smoothly for the benefit of all beings. May we all be happy and healthy as much as possible right now, especially with COVID, and may those who have COVID be healed instantly. And in particular, I just found this out. My old boyfriend, Brian, his father in Pennsylvania is hospitalized now with COVID, and he has pneumonia from it, and he's doing okay, right now, but it's been a bit scary. So for Gary Halterman, if you can think about him, he's in his 70s. For all the other beings with COVID and other illnesses, may they be released of the sicknesses instantly. May the precious supreme bodhicitta, not yet born, arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. However many sick sentient beings there are, may they quickly be freed from all sicknesses. May all the sicknesses without exception of transmigratory beings never occur again. And Rinpoche loves this dedication with emptiness. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas and the numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with the dedication praise is the best, by all the gone beyond victorious ones of the 3 times, in order to have good conduct. The long life prayer for His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. For Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the three sublime ones, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. I'd also like to dedicate to harmony at and among all of our centers, and harmony among the whole FPMT, like that. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you next week. And thank you so much, Rebecca, Nicole, Thupten Kunga Center, for hosting. Lovely to see all of you. I hope you're well. And if you're interested, we do some COVID practices that Rinpoche's recommended. My slot is 8 to 8:30 Saturday morning if you want to join us. I think the link's on my site, or the Shantideva, the New York site. You can find it. You can come along. It's just a half an hour. We do some practices like that. Please unmute. We can say goodbye.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Venerable
Venerable.
Amy.
Thank you, Mi.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Venerable